Days turned into weeks, and the weight of reality pressed harder on Jessica. The children, David, Lily, and Sam, were growing stronger, healthier, and happier. Their laughter echoed through the small apartment, a melody of hope. But for Jessica, every smile came with a silent question: how long can I keep this up? Bills stacked on the kitchen counter like bricks building a wall around her. The grocery budget stretched thin, and Jessica often skipped meals so the kids could eat. Her boss at the diner hinted she might lose her job if she kept missing shifts. The stress clawed at her heart, but every time she looked at their faces, the answer was clear: she couldn't give them up. Late one night, Jessica sat by the window staring at the city lights. Tears blurred her vision. "God," she whispered, "I can't do this alone." Then, a small voice interrupted her prayer. It was Lily, holding her worn-out teddy bear. "Jessie, are we going to be okay?" Jessica hugged her tightly. "Yes, baby," she said, even though she wasn't sure. In that moment, Jessica made a silent vow. She would fight for them, no matter the cost. The sun dipped low over the quiet streets, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Mary was hurrying home after a long shift, her thoughts fixed on a warm meal and a moment's peace. That's when she heard it, soft, muffled sobs coming from a nearby alley. Curiosity tugged at her heart. She turned the corner and froze. There, huddled against a brick wall, were two little boys and a baby girl swaddled in a thin, torn blanket. Their faces were smeared with dirt, their clothes tattered beyond repair. The older boy, barely 8, tried to shield the younger ones with his tiny arms, shivering in the evening chill. Mary's breath caught in her throat. "Where's your mother?" she asked gently, kneeling to meet their eyes. The boy's lips trembled. "She's gone," he whispered, voice breaking like fragile glass. Mary felt her chest tighten. She didn't know these children, had no reason to stay, but in that moment, reason didn't matter, humanity did. With trembling hands, she reached for the baby, feeling the chill of her skin. Right then, Mary knew one thing: she couldn't walk away. Ensing the murmurs. "All rise," the bailiff announced, and Jessica rose slowly, her heart pounding like a war drum. The prosecutor painted a chilling picture. Jessica, a cold-blooded murderer, driven by greed. Every word sliced through her like a blade. Jessica wanted to scream, to tell the truth, but her lawyer placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "Stay strong," he whispered. Her eyes darted toward the jury. Did they already hate her? Could they see her fear? The 3 boys she once called her own, where were they now? Did they even remember her? The evidence felt overwhelming: fingerprints, motive, opportunity. Jessica gripped the wooden table, praying for a miracle. But when the prosecutor slammed down the murder weapon, a blood-stained wrench, the room gasped. Jessica's stomach churned. "This is the woman who took a life," the prosecutor declared, pointing at her. Jessica lowered her head, tears welling. How did it come to this? She had spent her life saving others, and now no one could save her. The judge's voice cut through the tension. "Court is adjourned until tomorrow." Jessica exhaled shakily, knowing tomorrow could seal her fate forever. Days turned into weeks, and the woman, now known to the children as Auntie Grace, worked tirelessly to keep them fed. Her old job at the diner barely paid for bread, but she never let the kids go hungry. Each morning, she woke before dawn, tying a worn scarf around her head before heading to scrub floors and wash dishes for pennies. One rainy evening, as she returned home with a small bag of rice, she noticed a man standing near the door of her tiny apartment. He wore a dark suit, shoes polished like glass, and carried an umbrella that glistened in the streetlight. "You're Grace, right?" he asked politely. She froze, clutching the rice close. "Yes. Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "I saw what you did for those kids. People like you don't come around often." He handed her an envelope, thick, heavy. Grace hesitated, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside were crisp bills, more money than she'd ever held. She looked up in shock. "Why? I can't take this." "You're not taking," he said gently. "You're earning, for saving lives." Grace's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, hope didn't feel so far away. Months passed, and Malik's life transformed completely. The once hungry boy who begged for milk now wore a crisp school uniform. Every morning he walked past the mansion with a smile, clutching his books tightly, knowing someone believed in him. Jessica didn't just provide money. She gave Malik something far more precious: hope. She taught him how to read, helped him with homework, and reminded him every day, "You're capable of anything." But Malik never forgot his promise. Every chance he got, he told Jessica, "One day, I'll pay you back." She would laugh softly and ruffle his hair. "Just do something good for someone else, Malik. That's the only payment I want." Those words etched deep into his heart. He vowed to become someone worthy of her sacrifice. He studied harder than anyone in his class, even when his stomach growled at night. He dreamed of a day when he would stand tall, successful, and proud, not just for himself, but for the woman who saved his life. Little did Jessica know, that day was coming, and it would arrive when she needed him the most. By late afternoon, the house felt tense, like the air before a thunderclap. Cassandra sat on the edge of her bed, fingers trembling over a worn Bible. Down the hall, Malik and Jamal whispered fiercely, voices like low growls in the shadows. "Is she really going to jail?" Malik asked, his tone cracking. "They said life, man, life!" Jamal shot back, his fists curling. The youngest, Eli, stood in the doorway clutching his old teddy bear, his eyes wide and wet. He didn't understand every word, but he understood fear. The news played on the old TV in the living room. Cassandra's name scrolled across the bottom, bold and merciless. Accused, guilty, sentence pending. She pressed her palms to her face, fighting back sobs. "Lord, why now?" she whispered. The boys fell silent as they heard her voice break. For the first time in years, the unspoken truth hit them all. She wasn't invincible. She wasn't the unshakable rock who'd saved them from the streets. If they did nothing, she would be gone forever. And in that heavy silence, a decision began to form, a vow that would change everything. The courtroom was suffocatingly silent when the judge's gavel fell. "Life imprisonment," he declared, his voice echoing like a death knell. Jessica's legs buckled. The woman who once saved 3 abandoned children now stood as a convicted murderer. Her mind spun in disbelief. Life? For defending myself? She could barely hear the murmurs of the crowd, some whispering sympathy, others nodding coldly as if justice had been served. The prosecutor smirked triumphantly, while Jessica's lawyer stared at the floor, defeated. As the bailiff cuffed her wrists, tears streamed unchecked down her cheeks. She searched the room for a friendly face, but it was empty until the door creaked open. In the back stood 3 figures, tall now, no longer children. Their eyes locked on hers, filled with a mixture of grief and fiery resolve. They had promised her once, long ago, "We'll take care of you when we're grown." And now, watching the woman who raised them being led away in chains, that promise roared back to life. Jessica whispered under her breath, "Lord, let them remember." Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a fight that would make headlines around the world. Jessica barely had time to process the shock of discovering the children before the harsh winter winds howled outside her small home. She stared at their thin clothes, the trembling hands clinging to each other. They were starving, desperate, and afraid of her. "Please," whispered the oldest boy, his eyes dark with hunger. "Don't send us away." Jessica's heart ached. She was already struggling, barely making ends meet with 2 jobs. Taking in 3 kids felt impossible. Yet as she looked into their pleading faces, something inside her shifted. "I can't promise much," she said softly, "but you won't sleep in the cold tonight." Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as Jessica gathered them inside. She gave them blankets, the last of her bread, and warm tea. That night, she sat awake, staring at the ceiling. The weight of her decision pressed down. Rent was due, bills were piling up, and now 3 more mouths to feed. But Jessica didn't turn back. In that single act of kindness, her life changed forever, though she had no idea it would one day lead to a courtroom and a life sentence hanging over her head. Jessica stepped out of the prison gates, the weight of 25 years lifting from her shoulders like a heavy cloak slipping away. The air smelled different, cleaner, freer. Waiting for her were 3 familiar faces, now grown men. The boys she once rescued were no longer children. They were protectors, brothers, and her family. Tears streamed down Jessica's face as they rushed toward her, their arms wrapping around her in a hug that felt like home. For a moment, the world was silent, just the sound of their hearts beating together after decades of pain. Reporters swarmed the scene, cameras flashing, questions flying. "Jessica, how does it feel to be free?" She smiled through tears. "It feels like grace." The men had prepared everything. A home, financial security, even a book deal to share her story with the world. What began as an act of kindness had turned into a lifelong bond that defied time, injustice, and despair. Jessica whispered to them, her voice trembling, "I saved you once, and you saved me forever." In that moment, it wasn't about prison or pain. It was about love, sacrifice, and redemption. The story of Jessica proves one thing: kindness never dies, it multiplies. Jessica led the children into her tiny kitchen. The cracked tiles and worn-out counters told the story of her struggles, but to the 3 hungry kids, it felt like paradise. The smell of boiling rice filled the room as Jessica stirred the pot with practiced hands. "Sit down, babies," she said softly, pulling out 3 mismatched chairs. The little girl's stomach growled loudly, and they all laughed for the first time that day. Jessica served them generous portions, watching as they devoured every bite. "Why are you helping us?" the oldest boy finally asked, eyes wide with suspicion and gratitude. Jessica paused, her gaze softening. "Because I know what it feels like to be forgotten," she whispered, remembering nights she went to bed hungry as a child. After the meal, she found old blankets and laid them on the living room floor. The children curled up, their eyes heavy with sleep. Jessica sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling. She had no money, no extra food, and now 3 mouths to feed, but she couldn't turn them away. In her heart, she made a silent vow: "I'll protect them, no matter what it costs me."